I'm gonna call an audible. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We were supposed to do Jalen Green and
Mm-hmm.
last week, and we were supposed to do him again this week. I'm gonna cancel that
Okay.
because I think we should stick it to two topics because I cannot tell you how excited I am for our next topic.
Really?
It was announced 2 days ago that Kareem Monet, the guard from Canada, 6'6", about I think 205. It's tough to get
Hmm.
full
I
measurables.
saw
I've seen
one, like the one I saw was like 190, 180.
Yeah,
Yeah.
190, 180. I mean, I've seen 6'4" to 6'6".
Mm-hmm.
But he's a five-star recruit, and it kind of like John was saying with the top 100 that there's a lot of gems in here, and he was supposed to be a player that was going to go into college this year. He had recruit visits to Marquette,
Hasn't made his
to
decision
DePaul.
officially though.
I know I'm talking. Michigan State as well, but he never, committed to a school, and he recently just declared for the NBA draft. Thank you very much, Ricky Widmer, for jumping the gun there. But yeah, this is a kid that is absolutely extremely exciting to me because he is a guy that now is waiting for a commitment from an NBA team to go fully into the draft. So he has declared but has not signed an agent. So right now he is in
Mm-hmm.
limbo on whether to stay in the NBA draft and sign an agent or go to college. And he can come to the NBA because he is one of those players that has been in high school and is been a 5-year player. So he's been out of high school for a year now, kind of like an Anthony Simmons was, where he stayed in high school for 5 years and he's above the age of 19. So Kareem Monet, I am absolutely giddy about this guy. Before I get into all of my thoughts about him, Dave, I'll start with you. When you first heard this, did you know a ton about him? Because I didn't. And since this announcement's been made and I gave you guys the topic idea, what have you learned about him that has really stood out?
The first thing that I saw about him was when you shot me the info. So I started going back, trying to find everything I could out about him. I found the FIBA Under 19 tournament,
Yeah.
and I just watched every game of there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have every reason to be this excited about him. Like, he's someone who has an it factor to his game. He's not the most consistent player that I've seen throughout that tournament, but what he does have is a lot of confidence in his ball handling ability. He seems like he can create for himself. He can create for others, but really confident on pull-ups, knows how to work the whole court when he has the ball in his hands. When he's off ball, he knows how to move off ball. Like, there is just, his shot looks good. There's a lot of positives about this, and he's someone who I'm like, yeah, no, this gives me similar vibes, if not better vibes, than like Jalen Leck did last year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Jalen was an interesting talent because of his athleticism at his position.
Yeah.
And I think what I see here is the shot is there already. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I see a 6'5" combo guard who has a knockdown shot, who can hit from all three levels. He slashes well. He goes to the hole. He can throw down. Like, there's just a lot of positives, and I'm smiling talking about it. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, yeah, is he gonna get a guarantee from a team? I could absolutely see him getting a guarantee just outside of the lottery.
So I'm
Like,
so glad you said
this
that.
is the perfect year to happen for it too. Like,
Mhm.
I think he read the room of the NBA draft, understands that the talent out there this next year is going to be insane. So he's like, look, if I come out this year and I make myself available, even though I'm late to the game of basketball and I'm already this good at it, can you imagine him with more coaching, full-time personnel guys working with him on his game, his conditioning, everything about it? Like, yeah, he's got something special to him.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you said all of the words you just said because that's exactly how I feel. Because I was staying up last night thinking about Kareem Monet, and I was like, this kid could be a first rounder because all it takes is one. Because if one team gives him a first round guarantee that he will go in the first round. He will sign an agent. And if he signs an agent and he goes in, that just makes me think that teams will watch this tape, teams will see the measurables, teams will see the athleticisms, team will see that he's came over and really hasn't been playing higher level competition in basketball for at least 3 years now. And you hear his coach talking about how he's a sponge and he's soaking everything up, how he went from a 21% three-point shooter to a 37 percent three-point shooter by the end of the time there, that he was going to the U19, the under-19 tournament, and he is just absolutely impressing Jonathan Gavini. And those are guys that I absolutely trust because they've been doing this for so long. They go to every single event. And he's a guy that was there at 66 for their current board. So he's currently the 66th ranked player for ESPN. But Ricky, when I look at it, I see so much potential with this guy that, yes, he might right now be the 66th best player, but I honestly think that he could end up, if he comes into the 2020 draft, I absolutely think that he could be one of the top 5 best players in this draft. And I just keep thinking and talking to myself that I just think his value is going to go up and up more, the more tape and the more time that teams get with Karim Mane.
I'll put it this way, and this is a reason he is like, I agree with Dave in the sense of working with pro conditioning should be a top priority. Because my first thought when looking at him was 195. What is he, soaking wet? Because he don't look 195. He looks thinner to me than 195. So I was thinking immediately, like, I was kind of comparing him to Kevin Durant in my mind. Where, like, you think of Kevin coming out. What was the biggest knock against Kevin? He was a skinny boy. He was so skinny. And I don't know what Mane's bench press is, but he's a guy that I'm like, all the skills are there that Dave talked about. I'm not going to re-highlight what Dave said, but all the skills are there. Just imagine if he bulks up. Imagine when he gets that muscle on. He actually grows into his body more and becomes like a man. Because right now, young kid being a boy, playing like a man. But I mean, for me, if he would have been in college this year, you know where he'd be in our mocks?
You'd be the number one
pick. I honestly, to me, I came in with skepticism because I'm like, you know what? Should go to college.
Saying top 5, I was already like, wow. And you're like,
well, it's
fucking number one.
We just had John on, right? And I can't remember. I had it in my head of what term John was using. Sticking his nose in it, I think is what John was saying. Mane is not afraid to stick his nose in it. He'll drive to the lane. His passing ability. I think the comp that I saw last night from, I think it was the YouTube channel, was it's something right. I think it's all right or something. I gotta look it up. He said
I watched the same video.
He's like he said Drew Holiday with Alfred Payton is what he said.
Yeah, Ant Wright. Yeah, Ant Wright is the guy.
Ant Wright. And that's where I was like, oh, well, with the soaking wet thing, I was like, oh, he's got a little bit of that same problem that Kevin Durant had. And for me, with all the skills that are there, it comes a question, and this is something that he's going to have to answer. There's a team that I think should give him a promise right away, and that's the Boston Celtics. If there's not a team above 17 that is giving him a promise, Boston should say, we'll give you that promise. We'll take you at 17. Other than that, though, I think the Suns at 10. Like, would I rather have Cole Anthony, who we have tons of questions about, or this kid? I'm taking this kid. I'm taking Mane over Cole Anthony. Like, he would be a for sure top 10 if he played in college this year, for sure top 5. And for me, he would probably be the number 1 pick in this draft, mainly because of we can't even pick a for sure number 1 between the 3 that we've been talking about for 4 months.
Yeah, and we look at the class that he's in, and I believe he's the 25th ranked player. He is a 5-star player. ESPN didn't rank him. I don't know where 24/7 Sports has him, but I believe the last time I saw
has him at 5 stars, 25th nationally, 5th.
Yeah, 25th.
Guard.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is a guy that I don't know if, because can we look at the Dave? I'll ask you this question because. I feel like we are all stupidly high on him. I feel like we have to be missing something about him. And I just wonder, like, is it true that the 25th player of next year's class would be the number one player in this year's draft? Because it does seem like the potential is there. It seems like he is taken to the game very quickly. His coach, and I love this quote. It was, I've been coaching at this school 32 years, 42 years overall. I don't know if I've ever seen a kid with as steep as a developmental curve, Veneer College coach Andrew Herzog said of Monet. He's a sponge. He's very bright. He's extremely hardworking. He's got a great work ethic. And obviously that's his coach saying that. But like, if this is true, you have 6'6" kid who I saw a little bit of Drew Holiday. I saw RJ Barrett. Maybe it was just the red Canadian uniforms, but I did see length. And you talked about the 3 levels that he can score on, right? He jumped to a 37% three-point shooter. He is very good and very crafty at driving and attacking the lane. You talked about the hard-nosedness of him as well. He seems like a guy that can do everything offensively. And the thing that I love, too, is I started watching that Australian game, right? The group stage between Canada and Australia.
Yeah.
The first 6 minutes, he looked like shit. I cannot stress that enough. He could not get around screens. He was slow and just felt like he was lost in there. He had a horrible turnover. He really just didn't seem involved in the offense. And then he goes off for 23 points, and he is just absolutely in the feel of the game. He is rocking and rolling. He looked phenomenal. And the thing that I love, there was a little bit of an anecdote where the first time that like college NBA scouts saw him, like I think 20 scouts went and saw him. He went 1 of 8 from the field, and the next day he comes back and he goes 3 of 7 from 3, and I think it was 8 of 12 from the field or something like that. He just comes back, proves himself in day 2. I love it. I think that he's got the mindset. I think that he's got all the intangibles you want. I think he's got the abilities to score already. I don't know if he will be ready in anytime soon. He might need a year in the G League, and there was talks that he might even join Jalen Green down on that Southern Cal team in the G League. But I look at him, and I really think that NBA teams would be making a mistake if they don't try to take him in the first round, especially late in the first round. Like if we're talking, these teams like the Celtics, like you were mentioning, Ricky, at 27, right? Or their later pick, the last pick they have. If they are not guaranteeing him to be like, all right, we're going to take you here, I think they're making a huge mistake. You saw what Romeo Langford did down with the Red Claws or whatever, the main Red
the White
Lobsters.
Claws?
Yeah, the White Claws.
The White Claws.
Where Taco Fall's making a name for himself. We saw what Romeo Langford did down there, and Romeo Langford became a great defender. And we didn't see that in Indiana.
Yeah.
I think if you give him time in the G League, I think by year 2, he could be a stud. And that's why I would take him in the first round too, because you get more time with him. You get the ability to cut him if you want. Like if he doesn't turn out, you can cut him. But I think it would be foolish for teams not to take him in the first round. Get as much time as you possibly can, put as much work as you possibly can, because if he is a sponge, I think you're looking at a guy that could be a two-way player, a guy that can dish out the ball from a combo position, or possibly just a point guard, because he could be a 6'6" point guard if he's able to develop enough. What am I missing with this?
I'm just gonna toss this out there just to clarify the air. Better than Ayo Dosunmu?
Well, yeah.
I mean,
but 19.
He's
I would
19,
say so.
and I think his handles are better. I like his the thing that I think is, at least looking at him and Ayo, comparable.
They both play a similar position. I'm just curious to know, because I know you've been so high on Ayo.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ayo, but I'm not afraid to say Monet is better, or Monet looks better. Like, the thing that Sean mentioned that I liked about Monet watching his film is he looks fearless out there. To where, like Sean mentioned, he shot shitty the one day, 1 for 8, and then came back and kind of like, the best players can forget the bad performances. Yesterday's in the past, fucking forget it. I'm going to come out here and light it up. And even in his tape, I saw a little bit of, and this isn't a comparison, this is like hey, he must have watched him and wants to emulate him. He's doing some of the same moves we've seen LeBron do, where he kind of like leans into him before he drives on him. And like, to me, it's like, if you have that mindset already with the skills, you're just going to be able to build on it. And one thing I researched, Sean, you said 25th ranked kids that have been ranked high. In the last couple years, 2 that jump out to mind, Kobe White was 25. He went 7 overall. And then Jonte Porter was 25 this year, but only 2 spots ahead of him. This kid called Trae Young. I don't know if you know who Trae Young is, but
I don't.
Yeah, he was 23 in his year. So like we have seen guys that are ranked outside of that top 10 in high school become top 10 draft picks in the NBA. I almost said NFL.
No,
Yeah, and real quick too, like just to give a little bit more background on him, he's a native of Quebec. He stands closer to 6'5", weighs over 190, possesses a 6'10" wingspan, and he was born on May 16th, 2000. So he is born a day after Cole Anthony, but is a full year older than Jamias Ramsey and Patrick Williams. So the thing that I don't really have concerns about his age because he's still young. I mean, he's 19. And he'll be 20 by draft day, which is a little concerning, but not massively. I mean, you have 5 years. He's going to be 25 at his second contract. So I really don't hate that. But the thing that I do like is, he really has only been playing higher level competition for three years, and we've seen such a jump. But Dave, I'll go to you here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that the biggest thing that has stood out to me is he feels like he is getting ready for the NBA in a way that, when he's asked about like what's the next step with his body, he's working on his nutrition. What's the biggest thing that means to him? Academics and family. What's his strength as a ball player? Facilitate the game. Like, he seems like he is trying to find the best way for him to fully develop his game and turn into the all-around player that he is. Because right now, yes, he might be a 2-guard. He might have better skills at driving and then shooting from the outside. But I really just like taking in all I have over the past 3 days. I don't know if if he can fail. Like I don't know if it's in his DNA by the way that he's talking as a 19-year-old. Like, this kid came over and he's just like, all right, I'm gonna play basketball, and not only am I gonna play basketball, I'm gonna play it at the highest level possible. I want to calm down. What am I missing, possibly negative wise, with Kareem Monet?
I think what you're missing is the fact that we don't have as much tape on him as we have on a lot of other prospects. Right now, there's a lot of good combo guards out there in the draft. The one guy at the top of a lot of people's draft similar scenario where we don't have a lot of tape is RJ Hampton. So you look at those two guys next to each other and you start immediately trying to draw conclusions. Well, we saw RJ was able to do in limited time. He had a much smaller role because he was playing for a professional team in the NBL, playing against higher level competition, much older guys, more physically built, more structure in the coaching. So his role over there was definitely condensed, but what he picked up or what he could have picked up over there because of the players, because of the coaches and the talent around that league, versus someone who can ball out in a high school level competition. And that's where you start to kind of asking yourself the question. The nice thing with Monet is we got to see that under 19 FIBA tourney where he did show up in some of the games and had fantastic runs. I do wonder his defensive instincts will take some time to get there.
Yeah.
Offensively, you already talked about the fact that he is quickly growing as a shooter. I think the off the dribble shots, the step back, like these are the tools that you need as a modern NBA player in a modern offense. And he has the confidence to make those moves. He seems to be a rhythm player, which is really nice. I do question the fact that, the can't miss. He's answering all the questions right.
I know.
He is a very likable kid, and I think he's one of those guys who every interview, like, he just comes off in the best possible way. But I don't know if I have him, top 10 talent. I think that I think you guys, and it might just be the timing. It might be the fact that we've talked about every prospect here and we've gone through them with a fine-tooth comb.
It's how weak this draft is. That to me plays a huge part of it.
Shake things up, and I think he's definitely that guy. But when you compare him to the rest of this draft, you're like, okay, well, am I still gonna love him this much in 2 weeks? Am I still gonna love him this much in 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Also, we're watching a documentary.
Dave also says that because Dave's also a guy. I fucking love him, and then in 2 weeks can fall off from him.
Absolutely. But we're also watching a documentary about the best 2-guard in the NBA history and Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we're all wishing for a great 2-guard. You don't love guard. A lot of people don't love Anthony Edwards at the top of the draft because of his shot selection, volume.
I got two.
Elite at anything other than his physicals. So, like, I see the need. Like, people want to grasp onto him for a reason, but there are definitely some things we don't know about him yet.
Well, and I think that
I got two questions. Yeah. Let me do this because it'll frame two. Dave, you mentioned about defensive instincts, right? Over the past 4 years, and you can answer this as short as possible as you want, or you can go long. When we talk about guys needing to learn to play defense better, or to step up their defensive instincts and to step up their defensive IQ, what is the timeline for those guys? When you look back at prospects that we've talked about, not learning, defensive abilities. Obviously, we can talk about Romeo Langford. Romeo Langford wasn't a great defender at Indiana, and we see him jump out of the page when it comes to Boston this year. Defensive instincts, how quick can that be learned in the NBA? Is that something that he can pick up in a year, or is that something 3 years down the line? Are we still going to have questions about Kareem Mone's defensive outlook and potential?
It's situational. It depends so much on where you get drafted and the environment that he's going to play in. We talk about the excellent development on the Celtics as a whole. They seem to work great with young talent. Their head coach came from college. Their support staff seems to be excellent at getting the guys and saying, here's what you're great at. Here's what we're going to work on year one. Here's what we're going to work on year two. Like, they lay out the plan for them. And it seems like they're able to execute year over year with that, with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, those young wings out there. They really know what they're doing. Marcus Smart, obviously we saw the development there with him learning to shoot. Like, it's just, they've got a track record of success. Other guys where they get a ton of playing time, they never see success or growth. You see like a poorly run franchise like the Phoenix Suns. Marquise Chris is someone who had all the athleticism, everything you wanted in a power forward of the future. And he's someone who never learned how to position himself defensively. He never learned where to stand on the block, how to body guys up correctly, where to position yourself for rebounding, blocking out, when to go for blocks, when to let them go because like the situation. Like, he's just someone who couldn't get it no matter how many minutes you shoved at him. So I think it's 50% location, 50% on the person. And I think with Monet, all the positivity about the coach, the fact he's been a sponge, his quick time in the organized basketball world, everything points to the fact that he's going to be 100% willing candidate, easy to coach kind of a kid who's going to try to get as good at this as fast as possible. But the second piece is the one that he can't control, and that's what he needs to hear from a team is, does this team want me? Am I going to get the guarantee? And then what are my minutes going to look like? Am I going to spend time in the G League year one? Is this a long-term thing? Or am I going to get an opportunity early on in my career to start and get legitimate NBA minutes? Because I think he's someone who, if a team's on the fence and they play the up-down game with him, that's going to hurt him long-term.
Yeah.
Because he's someone who he needs some consistency. And I think if you bounce him between, the pro squad and the G League, you could hurt his confidence. You could hurt his long-term development.
And Ricky, what you had a thought, so you can obviously finish this before you answer my question. But Dave brought up Anthony Edwards, right? And that's a guy that we see all the athletic potential. He's still dropping 20, even if he has bad shot selection. It's not like he's not performing well or did not perform well at Georgia. But there are some concerns about his efficiency. There are concerns about what is his true upside in the NBA. I don't know if I would take him above Edwards just because we've seen Edwards more. We have more tape on him. But when you look at Karim Mane versus Anthony Edwards, how close is that gap right now? Obviously, you were saying that he could be number one, but I think that might be a little absurd.
Might be a captive of the moment kind of a thought there.
No,
so finish your thought and then compare the two in your mind.
This plays into the thought that I had. Like, the reason why I have that thought is because of this draft class. Like, this is not a draft class where every time we've done a mock, depending on who's won, we've had a different guy. Like, last year it was, no matter what team we had, it's always Zion. Even the year before, I know that I was the troll that year and didn't have Luka every time, but there was only two guys. But we for sure had an answer. If it was the Suns, it was going to be DeAndre Ayton. If it was mostly anyone else, it was going to be Luka Doncic. Like, this is the first year where we have not had a for sure answer of like, yep, this guy's number one. And it's not a choice of two, it's a choice of three. The biggest decision he's going to have to make, and I think this plays into why we're seeing this, is I expect next year's class to be, of course it's an unknown. We don't know what Cade Cunningham's going to look like at Oklahoma State. We don't know about the BJ Boston or Jalen Johnson or Jalen Green and Isaiah Todd, who are the G Leaguers that are going to be in the draft. Like, we don't, anything can happen. We can hype up next year's draft and it could be just as shitty as this one. But I think it won't, but I could just
be shocking if it was. But
think about how hyped up we were about this draft, and now that it's here, it's like, oh,
we were
this
hyped up
isn't
for the potential to talk about something other than Zion Williamson.
Which
for 9
I'd rather
straight
fucking
months.
talk about Zion for 9 straight months in this draft half the time.
Looking back, yeah.
But I mean, like, that's the thing where it's going to be a double-edged sword of, number one, hey, I'm going to throw my name to see how high I can get in this draft. Because if he gets a top 10 guarantee, he's out of here. He's going to the NBA. But let's say he gets, I'm going to go further down from 17. Let's say he gets a, even if it's like a promise from the like Knicks at 27.
Yeah.
In his mind, is that gonna be good for him? Like Monet, is that gonna be what he wants, or is he gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna bet on myself"? Even if he gets a low first round, I'm gonna bet on myself. I'm gonna go to college or the G League, whichever one. We're not gonna have that debate this second, but like, am I gonna bet on myself and try to be a first round pick next year, our first overall pick next year? Knowing the competition next year is probably going to be a lot steeper and harder than this year.
No, I think you're 100% right. I think that's a great point of at least bringing the idea of and now I was losing my train of thought.
And also Philly Sean, except the Kings took Marvin Bagley.
They don't fuck up.
Can you restate your point, Ricky? Because it was very good, and I just forgot.
Basically, even if, let's say, he gets the 27th overall pick, the Knicks go, hey, we're going to bet on you, and we're going to basically take you there. You got your guarantee. Is he going to take that and go, no, I think I can be better? Kind of the A.O. DeSumo. I think I can be a top 10 pick. So I'm going to come into college or the G League, bet on myself, even though next year's competition is more difficult than this year's.
And I that was a great point because there was a quote that I wanted to bring in from Wes Brown. He's a Canadian basketball scout for the Monday Morning Scouting Service, and this is a article from SI.com from Aaron Rose. And what Wes Brown said, I think he's keeping his options open for now. I think he's going to wait to get some feedback from teams, and based on that, he'll wait to decide to stay in or go to college. Making the jump from CEJEP basketball to the NBA would be a drastic leap, and NBA teams might be concerned about it. If Brown was advising Monet, he would say that he would tell the 19-year-old to go to college basketball before entering the draft. I think you have to look at the longer game, Brown said. If he goes to the NBA this year or tries to, I don't think he would be drafted, and as a result, he might be stuck in the G League playing with a bunch of guys taking shots, trying to make it to the NBA as well, whereas the college system, wherever he goes, he will be more suited and give him more shots than elsewhere. I think the college is a better route. So, Dave, when you hear that, is that a concern there? Because we're obviously talking about the potential. We're obviously talking about what he could be, but obviously, I mean, that is a huge jump going from Veneer College to the NBA, and really the only high level competition that he's been in is that U19 tournament, and it wasn't like he had great results. I mean, you look at him, he's shooting 36% from the field, 40% from, or 32% from, 36% from the field, 40% on twos, 32% from three, and 50% from the line. Not crazy, right? And a negative 11. He had 82 points or 11.7 points per game over his games in the U19. I think that's a fair take that maybe college is his best route. But obviously Ricky's bringing up the point that, maybe his draft stock will be a little bit different next year when he is older after he played a year in college basketball. There isn't even a certainty that college basketball will even be played next year. But hearing that,
sports in general, but
hearing that before we give our final thoughts, What do you think will end up being what happens with Kareem Mane? Do you think we will see him in the 2020 draft, or do you think his best decision will be go to 2021 draft?
I think if he is as good as you guys are hoping, he will get a late first guarantee. But I have a feeling that a lot of teams are not. So here's the thing: it only takes one, and like there are a lot of teams who would be willing to throw a pick at a young kid and just hope that, hey, long-term development. Like Anthony Simons went like 22.
Yeah,
and he was an elite prospect out of high school. So
Jalen Leck was 38, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's
we've seen Baisley be a first rounder. I mean, this isn't crazy to think about
it's not
him as a first rounder.
unprecedented. And each one of those guys, we've yet to see anything momentous happen in their careers. Like Anthony Simons had the amazing breakout game in the last game of the regular season in his rookie year. When he got minutes, he just lit it up because he has such a crazy good shot. You know, Jalen, we'll have to wait and see. Darius, same thing, wait and see. So, go ahead.
Well, the thing with that though, with Anthony's pretty small, right? Jalen Leck is fairly small. Baisley's the only one that you could.
Tall, he's just not got a lot of weight on him. I thought.
Yeah, but I'm looking at Monet and like 6'6", 190, that can play. If he gets up to 200, 205, like I think his body is fine. Like I think if we're all the guys that we're talking about, I think he is the most physically ready of the guys that have played 5 years and then jumped over. I mean, you could even look at Thon Maker. Thon Maker went 10th overall. Same shit, right? And he was a stick. So
but Thon Maker had those mixtapes though.
He did, but I'm watching Kareem Mone's mixtapes and I'm hyped as shit.
Yeah. I will land on the fact that he will go late first round, post lottery. I think he's post lottery. I think that a team would select him if that's what he wants to do. I think I would take it if I were him. I totally agree with the jump from basketball in Canada playing against kids who are same age or younger versus playing at the NBA level is going to be a massive jump. I would expect him to spend some time in the G League developing in his rookie year and maybe get a call up, you know, if we're doing the whole start around Christmas time that I've heard tossed around some more, maybe we'll get a post All-Star game call up to let him run with the team if they have a roster spot available. Otherwise, I would expect him to play a solid year in the G League to build up.
And Ricky, before you answer this question on where he'll finally go before we get to our final thoughts, I would have loved to see him in the Hoop Summit. He did get an invitation to represent Canada at the Hoop Summit in April, and obviously that showcase was canceled. And I just wonder, like, if he had a great showcase, if he went out and balled at that Hoop Summit, he would be a lottery pick. But right now we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him against higher level guys. Often. Where do you think he's going to go?
I think what's going to happen is he will not get the guarantee that he wants. I don't even think he'll get a guarantee in the first round because teams they're not going to use their first round picks on a guy that has questions. And if he came in and was fine being like the early second, then cool. But he ain't gonna want that. So I feel like we will see him in college.
Which college?
Michigan State. I hate to say it because I'm gonna love to see it, but I'm gonna hate to see it because it's gonna fucking give me anxiety. We're gonna see great battles between him and Adam Miller, between Illinois and Michigan State.
Maybe we go see one of those games.
Fucking Illinois, man. I can't wait for them. They've got I always say his name wrong. Caboclo, I think is his name. It's Curbelo. That's it.
Oh.
Curbelo, Miller, and then obviously Kofi.
Caboclo is a player.
Yeah, Caboclo is a player. No, it's
Mr. 2 years away from being 2 years
Curbelo is how you say it. But I think he's going to go Michigan State. Like, from what I've seen, it's either Marquette, who's actually offered, DePaul, Pitt, so he could go play for John's Pitt Panthers, or Michigan State. I think Michigan State is the answer there.
Yeah.
It's answer. Unless you want to be like Jimmy Butler or D Wade and go play for Marquette.
Well, and DePaul was one of his teams too, but I mean, he talked about he wants to go play for a program that will help him develop. He likes the way that he likes watching the way that former point guards have played there, and I mean, it'd be a tough act to follow up Cassius Winston at Michigan State, but
Seriously,
I mean, this kid seems as he's got balls, so I don't think it's gonna scare him that much. And to go play for Tom Izzo, although Tom Izzo in Michigan State has been in hot water and been a rough time.
Yeah.
Not a good look for their whole program.
Hashtag on the court.
Yeah, on the court, Tom Izzo is a very good coach. All right, final thoughts. I'll start with Dave, go to Ricky, and then I'll end it.
I think being a bit of I think we're getting a little overexcited about someone because it's just something new, and and we're overhyping perhaps. So I would take this with a grain of salt. Give it a month, see where it lands. Is he an intriguing prospect? Absolutely. Does he look like he is, the next coming of the great combo guard? He's playing against high schoolers. Like, gotta temper the expectations a little bit here. But I think he's got the right attitude. Every interview of him is super glowing positive. Coaches talk so positively about him. The fact that his learning curve is as accelerated as it is in the short time he's been playing. Like, there's so much upside. There's so much room to love this kid. And if you think that he's going to continue to accelerate his growth, we're just, talk about Obi Toppin, someone who came late to basketball. And like his growth curve was insane, going from, a player who had physical tools to learn how to play the game of basketball. And now he's going to be a top 5 pick. Like this kid's got a crazy high ceiling. I'll just land on that one.
Ricky,
I'm going to say if he played in college this year, he'd be the number 1 pick this year, but he won't be the number 1 pick next year for sure. I think he goes to college, has a great season. For sure, top 10 pick in next year's draft.
Yeah, my final thoughts are, and Dave kind of touched it a little bit earlier. When I was watching his highlights, when I was watching the full games, when I was reading all of this, it felt like I kept unveiling more and more that I liked about him. When I first started watching him, I thought he was just a true slasher. I thought of him as I thought he was, a combo guard, a guy that he can shoot from the outside, he can score. Probably should be more of a point guard, but he doesn't really have the facilitating skills to him. And then I got to the next day and I saw the same exact video that Ricky had. And Ant Wright talks about his facilitating abilities and how creative he is and how great he is. And then I started watching full games. And then I started seeing his 3-point shot come up. And then I started to see how he really started to get into the feel of a game. And when he's in the feel of the game, he truly looks like a stud. And one other thing, I have never seen a prospect that has a music video about him. There is a song about Kareem Monet out right now. Mo Bamba came out post-draft. So we can't even say that. So Kareem Monet is a guy that already is hitting his potential and is getting a music video. It's French. I don't know what they're saying, but Monet is in the video and it seems pretty good. So I mean, he's very unique. And I go back to the quote of, in the first year with us, he shot 20% from 3. There was nothing particularly wrong with the shot. We made a few minor tweaks, but it was a question of consistency. But I told him, Kareem, if you can become a consistent 3-point shooter, you're going to be unguardable. And he spent so much time with the shooting machine that I told him that he had to name it because it was officially his girlfriend. Right. And then between his freshman and sophomore year, Monet's shooting percentage went from 19 to 37. And it took a dip this season when he shot 21% from beyond the arc. But he said he isn't worried about Monet, and Monet can fix that problem. He has all the work ethic. He has the physical tools. And once he gets the 3-point shooting done, he'll be good if he's physically healthy. And there is some concerns about his health, but I go back to what Wesley Brown said, and he said he is maybe the most fluid athlete I've scouted in Canada. And that is in a place with Andrew Wiggins and RJ Barrett. And I think that if Kareem Monet is drafted in the first round, especially by the Raptors or the Celtics this year in the 2020 draft, they will be getting a superstar. Kareem Monet is a 100% absolutely a superstar in the 2020 NBA draft, and teams would be making a mistake if they don't take him in the first round.
So just to correct you a little bit, the album that Mo Bamba came out on, Mud Boy, did release after the draft, but the song itself was recorded in 2017. Which was before Mo Bamba even played a game. It was recorded June 16th of 2017, before Mo Bamba even played a game for Texas.
Wow. Okay. So was
the two went to
who is it? Was
it was
Wesley
Shaq West.
or not was
Shaq West.
right? Yeah.
The two,
I'm not a huge Shaq West guy. So
I just
didn't
looked it
know.
up on Wikipedia. He grew Mo Bamba and Shaq grew up together, so that's why he wrote it.
Oh, cool. So that's probably the same situation with Kareem Monet. So shout out to that. I was wrong on that one. Thank you for the correction.
I mean, it got
but yeah,
popular after.
it did.
Hella popular.
I love the kid. I think he's super intriguing. And yes, I am absolutely way too high out, about it. And here's the thing. I cannot tell you the last prospect that we were absolutely sold on.
Mm-hmm.
Dave is sold on him. Ricky sold on him. I'm sold on him. Ricky a little bit, maybe too sold on him, saying number one overall. But I love him. I love him so much. And does it concern you guys that we all like him?
No, I can't wait to hear. And with the 7th overall pick in the 2020 or 2021 NBA draft, the Chicago Bulls select Karim Mane.
I was going to say,
him up
if
with
there's
Danny
one
Abdia.
team to do it, I was going to joke about the Nuggets. And then I realized, I was like, wait, we have
You got the Nuggets guy.
We got the Nuggets guy.
Could you imagine Kobe
love
White,
it.
Kareem Mane, Denny Abdia? Like that's our starting backcourt of the future. Sorry, Zach.
I mean,
but,
you're not getting Monet and
I was going to say,
Abdia,
are we
but-
trading Zach
no,
for
Abdia,
Denny?
no. Abdia's this year, and Mane's next year.
Oh,
you think
okay,
next
of
year.
course.
Okay,
We get the
of
7th pick
All right.
next year as well because that's where we like to pick.
course. Or we trade Zach for it. But
Yeah, or
It's
we trade Zach for Mane.
It's a new era. It's the Karnisovas era. So we don't know if they're picking 7 next year. But let us know your thoughts on Kareem Monet down in the comments below. I had a ton of fun with the fast break. I don't think we need another topic. I had a blast with John. I had a blast doing this deep dive on Kareem Monet. There's still more to touch upon. I mean, this is literally a new prospect for us. So we get to go through all of this with all of our fucking time that we have in this goddamn quarantine. And we'll be staying at home all the
Got
way
another
through
month.
May.
Got another month.
Yeah, we'll be staying through all the way through May. So I'll probably be,
Thanks, JB.
watching Kareem Monet's full games on 3/4 speed. But shout out to everybody who's listening. Shout out to everybody who's watching currently on twitch.tv/MostOutPodcast. We got to obviously thank John for joining us. If you want to be like John, check out patreon.com/MostOutPodcast. I think that's all the housekeeping. We will have a mock draft coming up on YouTube soon. Obviously, this will be coming out soon on YouTube as well. Anything else I got to tease before I end it, guys? Are we good?
I think that's it.
All right. If you're watching live on twitch.tv/MostOutPodcast, Super Fans is coming up next. We'll be reacting to the Bears draft and doing some NBA fun as well. So if you are an NBA fan, there's still more NBA content coming to you. But for Dave Oster, Ricky Widmer, for our great patron, John, thank you so much. Again, patreon.com/MostOutPodcast if you want to join. I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next week.